Hello, gardeners. This is John Bowen, Buncombe County Master Gardener. We're back with part 3 of winter sowing. Here we're going to see how to handle the young seedlings, how to do transplants, and answer more of our audience questions.
What I'd like to do now is talk to you just briefly here about how we handle the actual plants themselves. Because once you open the lid up, well, actually, once the plants germinate, once they start to grow, they're going to want to start crawling out the top of your jug. And you're probably not going to want that to happen. So once they start getting too full in there, you're going to take the duct tape off, open the lid, peel it back, let them get the sunlight, treat them like you would any other plant that you've got growing outdoors. And they're going to get bigger and bigger here. And eventually you're going to reach the point where they have to come out of here and either go into like a 4-inch pot or something, or be transplanted directly into the ground. And what you do depends on which kind of plant it is. But there are 2 ways people do this. This one, you can see how densely planted these plants are. They're just a mess. And I did that on purpose for you. There's no way you're going to separate this into individual plants for transplanting. So one thing you can do with a pile like this is do what we call chunking. Use a spatula. This is an old paint putty knife, something that is kind of flat and lets you cut. Come down in here, take a section. I'm going to take about 1.5 inch cube of this thing and just cut down through the roots, through the plants, pick a little spot, try to get down there, go all the way down because the roots can totally fill the container at this point. Pop it out like a little cube. And there we have a cube of plants, if you can see that okay. Well, there are a lot there. And what we do with this one is just plant it directly. Don't try to separate them. Leave it a cube. Leave it this way. Mother Nature is going to thin some out. Some are going to die from the transplant shock. Some are going to make it. You may have more than 1 plant growing in this spot. For most plants, that's fine. For tomatoes, you may not want 6 tomatoes all in one tiny little cube. But hopefully on tomatoes, you've separated your seeds out as you planted. With something like this, it's a mess, but it will sort itself out in the garden. So you go through the whole piece here. You can take that one, put it in a 4-inch pot, go through the whole piece and grab the next section, chunk it out. Don't worry if you cut a couple of plants. Chunk it out and you have another clump of plants. They're tough, they'll survive. I could take this and make maybe 14 chunks out of this and end up with 14 nice clumps of whatever I'm growing. This is a way to handle it when you have too many plants in the container. Ideally, you're not going to have this many. Ideally, you're going to have fewer plants. And so I have another container here which does have fewer plants. Let me trade containers. This one I didn't plant quite so densely, and hopefully, here's one on the end that's pretty much a standalone plant. You can see this. Best thing to do here is to, again, use a broad knife, a spatula is great. Pull it out, and actually for most of these plants, it's even okay if they go bare root on you. If the soil falls apart like this one is trying to do, and I end up with that little piece right there as my transplant, that's fine. These plants are tough. Those roots are strong. Gently transplant that and you're okay. Even things that don't transplant very often all that well, like beets. I talked about beets with their tap roots. They will usually survive this process. You can do individual plants like that. But if you get individual plants out, it's great. Sometimes you'll have 3, like this one right here. Well, kind of gently work them out. And these are only like 12 days old. I didn't plant these early enough to give you a big root mass, but there's one there in the center that has a good root ball on it. These, if you had done winter sowing, these would have more roots. I can tease these apart. I can separate them out as individual plants. So if they're not too dense, separate them out and plant as individual plants. If they are too dense, plant them as clumps and let it go. Either way, it's okay. But you do need to get them out, and a flat knife like that is just a very good way to do it. The seedlings are stronger than you think. They will take more abuse than you expect. Don't be afraid to let them know what you expect of them. Once you get them in the soil, of course, or in the pots, then you're going to have to treat them like any other transplant and keep them watered. But they're already winter hardened. That's the good thing too. They're already hardened off. You don't have to do that process with tomatoes where you put them in the shade and you put them in the sun. They're ready to go. They may look horrible, but they're going to be good. They're going to be strong. So those are my two rules there. Try not to oversow. Use more jugs instead of more seeds in one jug, and go ahead and chunk them or transplant them as individuals. Don't be afraid to handle your seedlings. It's going to be okay that way. And that's pretty much the story for basic winter sowing. The references that we've given you have some good information on them. The two Facebook groups are extremely good. Cheryl Mann's is one that many people pay attention to. On the Facebook groups, they're going to ask you to join and run you through 3 simple questions to get you in, because they want to keep it a group full of gardeners. And there are many people there that have opinions about everything, as is always true for Facebook groups, but there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information in their files on those pages where they have pictorial guides to some of the things that I've shown you here. So I'd suggest go there and read what they have. Cheryl Mann could have written books about this. She thought about it. She doesn't. She gives it away for free. She is such a generous gardener. I really recommend her site. I've shown you the one way to do this with the milk jugs or with other simple jugs like that. That's the simplest way. And like most of us, you're probably going to want to change it up. You're probably going to want to try this instead of that, or think this is going to work better than that. And the answer is it might. What you're suggesting might work really, really well, but I urge you to stay with the basics. Try it once. Just give it a chance to work the old-fashioned way, because we know this works. It's time-tested. It's a really good place to start on this. This year, I'm going to be sowing some dill, some parsley. I'm going to do some tomatoes again. I have daylilies, I have Indian pinks, I have skip laurels, those things that are hard to germinate. I just want to see what happens. Prunellas, foxgloves, Rose of Sharon, Coreopsis, penstemon. I don't know what else. I have seeds in little bags in the refrigerator, and I'm just waiting for the winter solstice to get them out there. Most of those are seeds that I'm not really sure how to germinate, but I'm pretty sure that Mother Nature can work this out for me and make life simple. So overall, it can be a low effort, big reward process. Give it a try. Some of you are skeptical. I know you're saying, okay, can't plant tender plants in the winter. You can. I was really skeptical, and I'm glad I tried it. You could plant even just a jug or two with some spare seeds and see what happens. You don't have to bet the whole garden on this year. Just try it. I know it's going to work better than you can possibly imagine. And now is a really good time to start getting together what you need. Raid your neighbor's recycle bin and find some milk jugs. They won't mind. Ask Linda for some extra seeds. Tell her you just want to try winter sowing and you don't trust the process, so some seeds that you're not too concerned about. Give it a shot. Be sure you have some duct tape. You need duct tape to get through life. Any other last questions here? We're going to go ahead and turn it open to discussion, or toss it back to Linda, whatever needs to happen. But any other questions that you'd like me to take a shot at?
John, there are a few other questions in the Q&A. Curtis doesn't drink milk, and he wants to know what's a good source for milk jugs.
I was only semi-joking about raiding your neighbor's recycle bin. You probably have some neighbors that drink milk. Other things that work really well are iced tea jugs, orange juice jugs, even water bottles. You can go with the 1 or the 2 liter. I'm sure if you ask your neighbors and tell them you need some plastic items like this, that they will pull them out of their recycle bin for you, or set them aside for you. Neighbors are really the best source.
Great. And how do you spell Cheryl's name?
S-H-E-R-Y-L, Cheryl Mann, M-A-N-N. It's on the reference page I gave you, and her site is Winter Sowing, and then something about vegetables. I don't have it right firmly in my mind, but it's the one that has vegetables in the name, but it is on the reference page. There's a link to a good 2-page PDF that is a pictorial guide through this that was actually prepared for somebody on Cheryl Mann's site, but I stole the PDF and made it available to you directly. And the names and the links for the 2 Facebook groups are on there quite specifically.
Good to know. Have you tried this with lupine?
I have not, but I know other gardeners on the groups have, and they report good success. Lupine seems to be one that really responds to that stratification process. You may not get 100% germination because those seeds tend to be a little bit tough, but people have said, yes, they like it with lupine.
And Jill asks, you've mentioned a lot of flowers, but what vegetables will not work?
What vegetables will not work? I think it's be fair to say that with care, any vegetable will work, but some are easier than others. Tomatoes as a summer vegetable are pretty easy, again, as long as you watch out for that sudden freeze and you're able to protect them from this. The tomatoes are probably going to come out. They're probably going to germinate and show up here in your jug probably around the 1st of March. And you're probably not going to want them in the ground till May. So you're probably going to have 2 months where you have to watch over these seedlings. I say the 1st of March because it really depends on the weather. Last year was ugly in terms of winter sowing because it was so warm so early that all across the country, people were writing into the Facebook group saying, what do I do? You know, my plants are germinating already, and here it is the end of January. And the answer pretty much was, well, you have to throw a blanket over them, trust them, they're going to be okay. And for the most part, they were. So tomatoes are relatively easy as long as you provide the frost protection. I personally would not do peppers because peppers are very sensitive to cold. And if they slow down, they tend to not set and fruit so well. I know people who do peppers and are happy with it. I grow a lot of peppers. I would not do peppers because they're temperature sensitive. In the herb world, I would not do basil because below 40 degrees, basil turns black. And I don't think basil is a good approach to do this way, but I would definitely do dill and parsley. If you want to get an early jump on your beans, I usually plant my beans before the last frost date because I like to get an early jump on them. I think beans will work this way, but don't put very many in the jugs. Spread them out so you'll be able to get a clump of soil when you do the transplanting. I would do beans this way. I would try okra this way. Same thing, you have to watch for the cold, but I would try okra if you want to get a jump on the season. Squashes, I'm kind of disinclined to do squash this way, partly because squash can get so big, it can get so sprawly before you're ready to transplant it out that it's just hard to handle in the jug. And there are many of us who contend that you're better off planting squash directly even the first week of July because you're trying to avoid that first generation of squash vine borers. So you may not want to get an early start on squash unless you're going to cover them with some sort of floating row cover. But really almost anything, ask yourself, if it's going to be frost tender, am I able to protect it until it goes out? And then I'd say, otherwise, most anything. Other good questions. These are all good questions. You guys are paying attention.
Barbara asks, would you start basil in a jug and just later?
Well, I always start my basil. I never direct sow my basil. I always started as transplants, but I always start it down under my lights. And I usually don't even start the seed until, sometime in April, because I want the spring temperature to be totally stable before basil goes out. And 40 degrees is the number we kick around, that if it drops below 40, your basil can be a goner. And our springs are unstable enough that I would not be in a hurry to put basil out. If I was doing basil in a jug, I'd be afraid that it would germinate and be under 40 before I even noticed that it came up. So I would hesitate to do basil this way. It would be interesting to go on to Cheryl Mann's group and ask the group in our life zone, in our zone 7, what they do with basil and get a second opinion. But to me, basil is just too temperature sensitive that I do transplants, but I baby them along, I start them late, I keep them indoors until I'm sure the temperature outside is stable. Then they go out and harden off for a week or two, then they go in the ground.
Thank you, John. There are no questions remaining in the Q&A.
Okay, well, my email address is on the reference page. And if some of you come up with questions and you want to send me an email, I'd be happy to entertain that. I really strongly suggest you go to the Facebook groups and read their literature because they've done an extremely good job of putting basic material out there to help you get started. Don't get sidetracked by all their discussions about planting in 5-gallon jugs and putting clear covers on and all this stuff. They can go down some strange rabbit holes. Stay with the basics, try it out. You're going to surprise yourself and you're going to have a really good time.